Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 1904 Club from the Hull Daily Mail, the Hull City podcast, of course. It's just me and Burnsy today because Catherine isn't very well. So we send Catherine our best wishes. And unfortunately, Prutz and Fletcher are otherwise engaged today. So it's just me and Burnsy. And that's fine because Burnsy was at the MKM Stadium on Friday night. I've managed to forget all about it. So, I spent the weekend doing Christmas things, trying to get in the Christmas spirit, which was difficult, admittedly, because of how the football went over the course of the weekend. But Burnsy, chance, how are you doing, first of all, and chance to reflect on what was a grim night all round?
Well, I was slightly worried my new underarm deodorant wasn't working, and which is why there was only me and you've got a cold, Baz, so you couldn't pick it up. But It's one of those games you consign to the dustbin of history, but you can't really do that on the 1904 Club because we've got to analyse it, and we've had a load of responses. There's always the way when your team loses, you tend to get more response because people are sort of angry about it, have got a theory about it as to why it happened, and all that sort of thing. It was a shocking first half. It's going to be interesting to see how he responds to it and what he does. They were all over the shop defensively and in midfield. We've said before that to some extent this has been coming, hasn't it? Because of the way they play, the way they played all season, very open, conceded lots of goals. Other teams get a lot of chances, shots on target and what have you, or opportunities to shoot. And Middlesbrough, to their credit, played at pace, and their finishing was lethal. As we were chatting coming down the stairs on Friday night, did you say to me they'd had 5 shots on target, Middlesbrough, or something like that, and scored 4? I mean, they were just lethal in the finishing, but City just gave them a massive helping hand. And it's a case of how you react to it now. My sort of view on Friday night, and I've not changed it as we record on Monday morning, is don't panic about it. I mean, don't suddenly go, oh, it's all wrong, etc., etc. Let's chuck it all out and start again. I don't think that's necessarily necessary, but something needs to happen. And he's been trying to tweak it for a while, and it's not quite happened for them. So we'll address on the 1904 Club today how me and you think they might change it up. And for instance, I mean, the 2 centre halves looked a bit tired to me on Friday night. They were all over the shop. And midfield, what's he going to do in central midfield? JB started at Stoke, got Shepherd's crooked at half time. Amir Hadzimatovic started on Friday night in central midfield, got Shepherd's crooked at half time. So what's he going to do? The natural replacement would be Lundstram, but he's got an injury problem, hasn't he, Baz? We'll start with the good news, but Lundstram's got an injury problem, yeah?
Yeah, so he came back, as we all saw, at Stoke, and had an impact both during the second half and then after the game. And then he slipped over in training last week and hurt his knee. So he's now out for, well, I'm guessing another couple of weeks. They said, I was told 3 weeks, so that's a week ago now, in fact, just about. But certainly a race against time to be back for Christmas. You look, obviously, he's not going to play against Wrexham on Wednesday. He won't be involved at Millwall on Saturday, and then you've got thankfully for all of us, I think we need a bit of a break. You've then got a clear week from Millwall through to West Brom, and then from West Brom on the 20th, the Saturday, through to Boxing Day at Hillsborough. So, I don't think we need to panic necessarily about what happened on Friday night. I do think there's an element of it was coming, in the sense of it could have happened at Norwich in the first half. It could have happened at Stoke in the first half. On both occasions, by luck or by crook, by hook or by crook, they, at Norwich, as much as you could give them credit for sticking in the game, I think that was as much down to Norwich's profligate finishing as City being resolute. And you go, oh yeah, fair play. They stuck in the game. They were resolute. They weren't playing well, and they rode it out, and they got to half-time at Norwich at 0-0. That is true. But what is also true is that Norwich missed some very big chances. And you think of the one where Sargent somehow cleared over the bar from almost in the goal. That's not because City have been resolute or strong or defensively solid. That's because Josh Sargent missed a chance that last season he would have put away 10 times out of 10. At Stoke, I think the goalkeeper, made a couple of really good saves to keep it at 1-0, and they were vastly. I think I think they've got a couple of problems, and we've talked about this all the way through the season. I think that there is a problem in some games, not all, but some games in how they start games. Obviously against Leicester, they were 2-0 up very quickly, so they started the game very well. At Norwich, they were terrible in the first half, and they were fortunate. Against Stoke, they were pretty awful in the first half. Were a tad fortunate, although I still come back to the point I made last week, but they should have had a penalty after 10 minutes, and perhaps that changes the way they play and also the way Stoke play. But look, they were rank bad on Friday night. You have to give credit to Middlesbrough, I think, who did the job on them. They tore them to pieces. They were that front 4-5 were very, very fluid. City contributed to their own downfall. Egan and Ajay, who are normally really solid and genuinely quite calm, were making errors. I saw Neil Warnock on Sky, say that all of his former players would be laughing about his comments on the telly, about kicking into Rose Ed, and you've got Ajay and Egan both trying to be clever. And you can sometimes go, at least they're trying to play and trying to get out, but I think there's a time and a place, and that wasn't it. And obviously, you've got Hayden Hackney and in midfield. I thought was exceptional, best player on the pitch by a mile. Riley McGee was very good, and City just weren't at it. And we in this league as well as anybody, and we all know about every team in this league. If you're not at it, you will get punished. It's such a competitive league. It's such an even league in many respects, and pretty much every team in this division have got good players. And if you don't play well, they will hurt you. And City have at times rode their luck where other teams have missed chances and they've got away with it, and either they've gone on and won the game or they've drawn the game, or whatever. Well, probably not drawn the game because they don't tend to draw games very often, but they tend to get out of the mess they've possibly got themselves in. Unfortunately, Boro were just never going to give them an opportunity. They were clinical, bang, 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 and you're 4-0 down. At least they won the second half.
Yeah, you don't get any points for that, Baz. We've had a load of response to the 1904 club this morning, which is just as well because it's me and Baz this morning. Nigel says to the 1904 club, that result felt like it has been coming for a while. I think we probably all feel that with how open we play games. Not sure if it's a defence or midfield issue at the moment or both. I think it's both, Nigel, really. Seems too easy to play passes through us, and we don't defend crosses at source well enough. Need a defensive midfielder in January, in Nigel's opinion. And it's the BMT, says, I feel like the Boro game was a long time coming. The amount of shots on goal we concede and mistakes we make made this always on the cards. I feel like it's easy to blame the defence straight away, but we lose the midfield battle every time. Weak partnership on Friday, says that texter to us. Phil Moore says, midfield needs addressing in January, Burnsy. Without Lundstrom, we lack the ball winner, playmaker. Getting overrun most games. We only seem to play for 45 minutes, not 90. We've discussed that Jekyll and Hyde nature to their performances on last week's edition and a couple of editions of the 1904 club. And Flatcap and Ferret says, massively overachieving and have been fortunate not to have been 4-0 down in other games. I'm still worried about a free fall in the new year. Have you any concerns about that this might be the start of a free fall?
No, I don't think so. I think they were exposed on Friday night for what they are, is a team that, when they're at it, they're a match for anybody in the Championship, and we've seen that already. But when they're not at it and they give goals away like they do, then they'll get punished. And I saw a bit of the Derby game against Leicester on Saturday. Similar thing. Leicester were 3 up very quickly. Derby although actually responded better in that first half and had a couple of good chances, hit the crossbar at 3-0. Leicester did have a goal disallowed, admittedly, which would have made it 4-0. But these results do happen. It is a crazy league. And as I say, I think City have had it coming, but they have rode their luck. And I'm not overly concerned in the sense of they're going to start, losing games now and start slipping down the table, because I still think they've got, it's good to, at least it was good to get Miller on the pitch on Friday. We'd expect McBurney to be on the pitch against Wrexham on Wednesday. I would be astonished if Mo Baloumi didn't start. And the other thing with Baloumi, and we saw it at Stoke and to a degree on Friday, he actually brings an element of control to when he's on the pitch. Because when he's not on the pitch, I think that the opposition see that as a down both sides. They see that as an opportunity to get at Coyle and Ryan Giles. Obviously, I know Gelhardt's been there, but Gelhardt tends to drift in and around. He's kind of almost becomes like a number 9 at times. So he's not an out-and-out winger. I think it was really noticeable at Stoke when Baloumi was on the pitch, suddenly the left back has then got us. He can't go forward as much because of Baloumi's threat. So that does change the dynamic of how City are played against. But Middlesbrough, you have to give, as I say, Kim Hellberg's only been in the job 5 minutes, and he outthought Jakirovic. And we've given Jakirovic an awful lot of credit on this podcast for the job he's done, and rightly so, because he's done a fantastic job. But there are games where other managers are going to get the better of each other, and I thought Hellberg got the better of Sergei on Friday night. Perhaps he could have changed it earlier in the game in terms of personnel, because clearly it wasn't working. But as the fans have been saying to us, there is a problem in midfield. And I asked Sergei that on Friday night, have you got a problem in midfield? Because I put to him, well, at Stoke, you hauled off Darko after 45 minutes. Tonight, you've hauled off Amir after 45 minutes. I think at Norwich, he pulled him off after 45 minutes as well. So, and throughout the season, there have been games where he's made changes in midfield. So he's clearly on that basis, he's not happy with what he's getting. Because if he was, he'd have a settled engine room. And we know the midfield is so important to how, if you win the midfield battle in the football match, 9 times out of 10, you're going to win. You're going to win the game, and they're not winning that midfield battle often enough in a game to then win a football match. And that's why they've lost 4 games in 6, because they've not. Yes, they've made catastrophic errors defensively to give away really bad goals, but they're not winning further up the pitch. And I think that's where McBurney comes in. Destan, scored 2 in 2 before, obviously in the Portsmouth game and then the QPR game, did well, but his hold-up play is not as good as McBurney. McBurney occupies defenders. He gets City up the pitch. We've talked about this millions of times at Birmingham when City were under the cosh. He got on the end of a ball that was cleared to win his side of corner at the opposite end. I think McBurney controls City further up the pitch. I think Baloumi can do that. When Miller comes back, he can do that. So I think, obviously players missing. Mitazo's been a huge miss since January, and he would be potentially that player that shields. They don't have anybody, Burnsy, that plays in that traditional number 6, and Prutton will kill me for saying it, the number 6, but that just breaks up play, that shields, that sort of just goes across. He's like a shield, that goes across the back 4. He breaks up play, he wins the ball, he shoves it, a bit like we saw with Seri when he was here. They don't have anybody at the minute that's capable of doing that consistently.
We'll stick with the midfield thing because we've not come up with an answer yet, Baz. And I do feel on the 1904 Club we at least ought to offer an answer to this. Matt L says, Ami are not up to the pace of the Championship and midfield not offering enough protection. Need a number 4 ahead of a number 10 in January. Yeah, Prutz will not be happy with that. Goals 4, not the problem, and experienced campaigners making too many basic errors. Matt, thank you for your message to the 1904 Club. Generally, Tom Butler, the Brand's Tiger, says, we were always going to get results like this. I expect that we might see a few more through the season, unfortunately. We need a fully fit first 11, to be honest. I'm not sure that will happen, Tom. That's just the nature of the game. It's brutal, the Championship. We know that. Let's be fair, this season is all about staying up and hopefully getting to the summer without any more problems. I don't know. I still fancy them for the playoffs. I still think they've got a real chance. And Tony Silva finds the silver lining in the grey cloud. See what I did there, Buzz?
Love it.
We're close to getting the Holy Grail. It's not bad for a Monday morning, let's be fair. We're close to getting the Holy Grail of Miller, Bellumi and McBurney. We're fine. And Stephen Franklin said, midfield looks unbalanced. Amir hasn't shown a lot. We need to find an Ian Ashby style of player who will sit between the back four and our midfield. And we need to move Joffy back into the central attacking midfield position once Mo and Miller are fit. January looks like it's arriving at the right time. So what's he likely to do central midfield wise on Wednesday night against Wrexham? Have you got a gut feeling for it, or is it too early to say? What would you like to see?
I think for me, Burnsy, at this stage, given the players that aren't available and these options, I'd go Matt Crooks. I think Crooks started out as a number 6. He's tall, physical, strong. He's got that ability to poke the ball away. He's got the ability to pick a pass. He can push forward if he needs to. So I think for me, I would go Matt Crooks is the number 6 for now until you get Lundstrom back, until you get... And let's be honest, Lundstrom had been okay, but I don't think he was the number 6 they thought they were getting either. So I don't think it's not like when Lundstrom was in the team that he was doing the shielding job and protecting everybody and everything was fantastic. I think let's not, forget that. Lundstrom showed glimpses. Obviously, he scored a fantastic goal against Southampton. He showed glimpses of that quality that we know he's got at his disposal, but I don't think he was 100% perfect in that role either. So I think it's been a problem all season that they've not been able to resolve. And whoever's got in that position hasn't, grabbed it by the scruff of the neck, whether it be Darko JB, who's still young, let's be perfectly honest. And I know he's played quite a few games in the Championship, but he's still a young player. Amir Hadzimitovic hasn't really, for me, done it. Yes, he's shown glimpses. Yes, he's shown glimpses, basically. But at times the game passes him by. He's too slow on the ball. We saw on Friday night how he was involved in 3 of the goals, particularly the first one when it goes down the left-hand side. I know people are criticising Louis Cole, but Louis Cole had gone. You want your fullbacks to push on. So but it's risk and reward. If your fullback is pushing on like Louis was, and then you lose the ball and he's well out of position as he was, you've then got to have adequate cover. You've got to make sure that those players that if you're giving Louis Cole the license to go on and get to the opposition corner flag and put a cross in, when you lose the ball, because that is going to happen, you've then got to have players with pace and the players that can are direct enough to get back and track back. It was really interesting at points in that game that City would be on the attack, would be having a corner or a free kick or a throw in and around the Middlesbrough penalty box, and they were leaving Morgan Whittaker right on the halfway line, even into City territory. And I was like, you don't really see that so much anymore because managers are so keen to get everybody back and everybody goes back and defends, and you end up having pretty much 21 players in the opposite, in the penalty area. I actually really liked it that they were leaving Whittaker up, and that was taking 2, possibly 3 players from a City players out. You were leaving. They were having to bring back Ryan Giles. They were having to bring back. Obviously, Amir came back as well, and there was, I think Slater at one point had come back as well. So you're taking 3 players out of it just to mark 1 player. Obviously, when they lose it, Coyle's forward, and then Amir's tracking back. Amir against Tommy Conway, Amir against Morgan Whittaker. I mean, you're kind of setting the guy up to fail. So I think fundamentally that was a problem in terms of the players they had in transition. But so for me, I think I would go Crooks and Slater. I think that's the best they can do right now. And Crooks is, as I say, it was at Boro where Crooks became sort of more of a number 10, and he said himself that he wants to be more involved in the game. Well, okay. Find the number 10 role can sort itself out. If it means Darko JB playing there, fine. If it means somebody else playing there, fine. If it means dropping, I don't know, Carl Joseph into the number 10 role and playing him off or playing Destan, him with Destan, I think that's less of a concern for me than finding that ability to start protecting the back four and having a bit more control and presence in that midfield area, because they're just losing the battle. And I mean, look, you're not going to come up against the Hayden Hackney every week. He's one of, if not the best, midfielder in that position in the league, and he will be playing in the Premier League, if not in January, in the summer, whether that be for Middlesbrough or somebody else, because he's that good. And it was kind of distorted that he played so well on Friday night and City just couldn't get near him. But I think there are things they can do, and I would say Crooks, for me, would be the number 6 on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I think I wholeheartedly agree. Crooks and Slater at the base of midfield. I think the other thing with Crooks, especially against Wrexham, is that his height might be an advantage, because I talked to somebody about Wrexham and said to them, what are they like? And they said they're brutal. So, with Kiefer Moore about, I think Crooks dropping back in and helping the centre halves would help. The other thing is defensively, the centre halves had at best an untidy game, the pair of them on Friday night. Are we expecting Charlie Hughes back in? Are we expecting any further changes there?
That I was going to mention that. That's the other option he's got. Could he play Charlie Hughes in that number 6? Because Hughes has got decent passing range. He's fit, he's agile. Yes, he's made quite a few mistakes recently, but he's a young player. He's going to make mistakes, and generally, if a centre half, a bit like a goalkeeper, makes a mistake, it's probably going to be a goal. So it gets magnified. Obviously, perhaps Hughes is another stopgap for the number 6 role. But yeah, I think certainly in the short term that isn't going to happen. I would expect on Wednesday night that it's Ajayi and Hughes. The other alternative he's got, if he's trying to shore it up, is he could go 3 central defenders, go Ajayi, Egan and Hughes, and then have Giles and Coyle as his 2 wing backs to give him another layer of protection. As we have seen him, not all the time, and it's generally not always from the start. He tends to, sometimes he'll go to a back 3. We saw it at Norwich. He'll go to a back 3 within games or in a second half, or to try, if he's trying to see out a game, he might do it then. We've not seen it. We've seen it sporadically, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, the back 3 system. But that wouldn't surprise me, particularly, as you say, with how Wrexham set up, with Kiefer Moore. We've seen Wrexham already this season, of course, in the League Cup. I mean, City had got the game sewn up with 5 minutes to go, and then obviously they send on Elliot Lee, and he scores 2 goals in 90 seconds. But obviously Elliot Lee's not there anymore, and I'm not sure that is going to happen on Wednesday. I keep saying Friday. The nights, I'm getting confused with all the nights. Go on.
They come thick and fast. Just on the centre half position, does Famewo not come into the equation at any point into the thinking? Because he is a centre half. He's not a fullback. Is he not ready to start? I've not seen enough of him.
I think he could. I mean, he came on. He actually did a decent job at left half at Stoke, apart from one time when he got completely cut inside and the ball went through inside him, and the lad ran in and crossed it, and that was, I think, for that incredible Louis Coyle goal saving block. But I would be surprised. He's going to start. He's already basically said that Jurkovic is going to start Shemi Ajayi, bearing in mind that they lose him after the Millwall game to the African Cup of Nations. So I would suspect, rather than make too many changes in that area, you still want a little bit of stability. I would be, if he doesn't go back 3, I think it'll be Egan that drops out, and he gives Egan a rest over Millwall, over Wrexham and Millwall, knowing that he's going to need Egan back to back for the length of time Ajayi's away, however long that is, and that would depend on obviously Nigeria's success or not, or lack of it in AFCON. But I think Famewo remains a backup. But obviously, we've seen Charlie Hughes has just had a hamstring problem. Who's to say that doesn't, flare up again over Christmas when you've got a lot of games in a short period of time? Egan has been a regular, but who knows what's down the line? And given City's dreadful injury record this season, and for what feels like forever, Famewo is going to be needed at some point. So I think they'll keep him in reserve for now.
Okay, loads of stuff coming into the 1904 club. This I didn't spot this on Friday night. So spotter's badge, as Ron Atkinson might say in the past, to Georgie Bell, who says, notice Gelhardt limping slightly when he went off and later went down the tunnel with an ice pack on his calf. Any news? Well, I'd sent him a reply saying, good spot, George. Don't know, but I'll nudge Baz Cooper on the 1904 club. So consider yourself nudged, Baz. Did you spot that, Gelhardt limping off?
Yeah, I asked Sergey after the game about it, and he said it was a concern and he would be assessed. Now, I gather that assessment has taken. Not entirely sure the news is overly positive, unfortunately, that we've obviously he's got a calf injury. He got a kick. I think it's a bit similar to, excuse me, what happened with Lundstrom against Sheffield United when he went off after 15 minutes or whatever. Lundstrom got a kick on his calf. McBurney got one on his calf at Birmingham. So both of those, obviously, Lundstrom missed 9 games before coming back at Stoke and then doing his knee, unrelated. McBurney's missed 8 games, although he was on the bench on Friday, wasn't used. So technically 9 games, I suppose, as well. So we are going to be hearing from Dean Holden at the training ground on Monday afternoon, as it is ahead of the Wrexham game. So we'll wait and see what the official line is from the football club on Gelhardt. But it's my understanding is that he has picked up a calf injury. He won't be involved against Wrexham, and as I say, it doesn't sound overly positive. And given the calf injuries they've had with McBurney and Lundstrom, and the length of time that they've been out for, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put 2 and 2 together and work out that it could be a lengthy one. We hope that he's whatever this calf issue is, that Joff is back quickly, because he's been 8 goals in 10 games. He's been the talisman without McBurney. He's been an absolute threat, and as devastating as it would be for City, for him as well, because obviously he's in the best form of his life. He's loving it. He's scoring goals. He's impacting games. He's a real threat. And to lose him for any length of time, and he's going to be out he's clearly going to be out for a little while. It's a massive blow, and it's kind of one of those where you look at it, you go, we had this kind of almost utopia, didn't we? A couple of weeks ago, we had this utopian thing on the horizon of Millwall, where we thought that Lundstrom, Miller, McBurney would all be back. Bellumi would be fully fit as well, and we'd go to Millwall with only Casey Palmer and Elliot Matazu on the sidelines. Well, it looks like that Millwall game's going to come at the weekend, and they're going to be without Lundstrom. It looks like they're going to be without Joe Gelhardt as well. So you kind of giving with one hand and taking it back. So yeah, we'll have to, as I say, we'll have to wait and find out what the official confirmation is from Hull City. But as I gather, it is a calf injury. It is because he got a kick on it. So it's not like, I know everybody always jumps to criticise medical staff and doctors and pitches, and basically fans and people blame everybody for injuries. I just think it's another, you can't legislate for kicks in a game. It's a contact sport, and it's just grossly unfortunate. And we're going through a phase at the club at the minute where big players are getting injured. Obviously, Cody Drame's had his problem as well, and although not serious, but yeah, it's a problem, isn't it? Because as I say, you're getting Miller and Bellumi. I'm so used to saying Miller and Bellumi, Miller and McBurney back, and then you lose Gelhardt and Lundstrom. It's just, yeah, really, really sad, isn't it? Because it's going to hamper their progress again, you feel.
In half time, by the sounds of it. It certainly will be at Millwall on Saturday, but Wrexham to come Wednesday night. Josh Senior to the 1904 club. Given the amount of chances we've been conceding, this was going to happen at some point. I think we all feel that Middlesbrough result. I'll judge our ability as a squad on the reaction that follows on Wednesday. What else have we got? And we've got loads coming in. Lee Walker says Friday night, very woeful performance. Hopefully we can bounce back on Wednesday night against Wrexham. And Dave Lawson said, I'd be interested in your views on how experienced players like Egan and Ajayi can be so panicky and have so poor judgment. Aren't they supposed to help the less experienced ones? Were they panicky, or was it just really good pressure from Middlesbrough, who were on the front foot all night, went for it. They were quick, they were pacey, and defenders didn't get time to settle, maybe. Having said that, Ajayi, when he was caught in possession, I think Middlesbrough at that point were 1-0 up. Somebody needs to give him a call, or he needs to get shot of it. And Egan's clearance for, was it the second goal? Just needed to go long. They had a bad night, the pair of them. But you've got to give credit to Middlesbrough for the way they played the game. But it has, Dave, raised a few question marks. Did they panic, Baz? Was the panic in there?
Yeah, I think there was. I think there was. But what I would say is goals change games, and goals, very often give the goal scoring team confidence and hit confidence of the team that have conceded, and it happened so quickly. It unravelled so quickly, and I do think there was an element of panic. I agree with that. I think they made bad decisions. I think there's a communication problem, and I think that comes from the goalkeeper, and I think that needs to be addressed. I think the communication from the back to the front, the gaps between the lines on Friday night were all over the shop. I just think it was, that first half was a complete capitulation of everything, and everybody was a mess. The whole system was a mess. The gaps all over the pitch were ridiculous. Players were making errors that we're not used to seeing too often. Look, like we said before, I think it's easy to get. We'll know more about this Hull City team once this kind of Christmas period's out the way. When you've played everybody once, it starts to settle down. We know where they're at. I think they have got some fundamental flaws in their system, as we've said throughout the season, in terms of how they, they're the second top scorers in the league, but they've conceded the most goals bar Sheffield Wednesday. Interestingly, I saw that when I was putting some stuff together on Saturday. I was looking at where the chances are coming from. To start with, no team has conceded more shots than City, 300 or so. But I think 74% of opposition chances are coming through the middle of the pitch. Then there's like 13% left, 13% right, or whatever it is, but 74% down the middle. So that tells you, and that's another quite damning statistic, that in the middle of the pitch they have a problem, and as we've talked about already today, that is an ongoing issue in the middle of the pitch, of that somebody to screen and protect.
Just on that point, well, two things. Nick had sent us a message to the 1904 club saying 19 conceded from crosses out of 34 in total. This is shambolic. How do we fix this leaky defence? He's saying there's a lot of crosses coming in. The manager, I read a story that you'd done with the manager suggesting that his priorities in the transfer window in January were a goalkeeper and a number 10. Is not the bigger, and given that they've got limited scope given the transfer embargo and everything like that, it's not the bigger priority in midfield a defensive midfielder?
I would say so.
Rather than number 10.
I would say so. Yeah, I don't think. I think. Yeah, we all want to sign attacking players. Obviously, they tried to sign. Well, I said they tried to sign. They had loose talks with about Fabio Carvalho. I mean, some would say that was pie in the sky. But so you can see where their priorities lie in terms of they want to strengthen that attacking unit, and I get that. I totally get that with how they want to play, with the fantastic free-flowing attacking football we've seen at times. But their problem, and we've said it all season, and everybody can see it, it's as clear as day that their problem is conceding goals. And you cannot go through a season conceding the amount of goals that they concede and expect to be successful. It gets you through so many games. There's only so many times you can concede 2 and expect to score 3 or 4. Eventually that will catch up with you, and we're seeing it. Yes, I know they came back at Stoke, but there have been games where they Derby away, they gave 2 awful goals away, 2 awful goals, and they lose. That's a game that they really should have won. And there's been so many games. If you look at the 8 games they've lost, there was the Blackburn game, which we put down to them all being sick. They lost. They were heavily beaten at Bristol City, and they were heavily beaten against Middlesbrough. Every other game, the Watford away, they threw that away. QPR away, they threw that away. Conceding 5 goals in those 2 games, all 5 completely avoidable. So they have, as a collective, a fundamental flaw that the manager and his coaching staff have got to find a way of making that team more, making that structure and the players within it and their responsibilities stronger and more disciplined.
Well, can I interrupt there, Baz? So what's Sergei Yakirovich saying about that? Because as somebody points out to, sorry, I've lost the message. He said earlier in the season it's easier to fix the defensive flaws than it is to find more goals in the team, sort of thing. I think I'm paraphrasing there. So what's he saying about it? Is he scratching his head a little? They're doing all the right things in training, and then they go out and there's a bit of brain fade or whatever, and people make mistakes. Is he tearing his hair? He must be tearing his hair out. But what's he saying about?
Well, I said to him on Friday, I said, look, for all the good work that you've done, and let's not forget that they're still in a fantastic position, and it's been by where we were last year, it's been a phenomenal season so far. But I said you've conceded 34 goals in 19 games, and it's having a massive impact on you. What are you doing about it? And he said, we're working on the training ground, we're talking to the players. I think there's an element from him of for 65 minutes against Ipswich, I thought they were really, really. What's the word I'm looking for? They were really not tight, but they were resolute. They stuck to their job. They were quite.
They were the better side.
Yeah, but my point being, from a defensive, there's a word I can't think of it, and it's defensively they were strong. They were compact. And then they just fell apart. They were much better in the second half on Friday night, much more compact. At Stoke, they were much more compact generally in the second half. They gave up a couple of moments, of course, but they're never going to be good enough to go through a half of football in the Championship and not give any chances up. They're just not that. I'm not sure any team's good enough in the Championship. They've got to find a way of being, and we've seen it for spells in games where they have got the ability to almost shut down and be really cocooned and compact. But the problem is they've got to find that balance between being a team that can attack and a team that can defend. And I still think they can do both. I don't think it's a case of, okay, we're going to go into our shells and we're going to be really negative and we're going to close out a game 0-0 and we're not going to carry any threat. I still think a team that's got Miller, Bellumi, Crooks, Ollie McBurney, Gowhart when he's fit, that team is still going to create, Ryan Giles, Coyle, that team is still going to create chances. But they've got to find that happy medium between being a team that wants to entertain, and you applaud that mentality, of course. But you've also got to be, at the other end, you've got to be sensible. You've got to play with your head. You can't give teams 2-3 goals every game because, yes, that will get, every now and then you'll get away with it. Every now and then you'll have a day where you score 3 and you win 3-2, like against Oxford, like at Birmingham, like against Portsmouth. But there are going to be so many other games where, like at QPR, where you go away from home and score 2 goals and you've lost 3-2 because you can't do the basics. And the similarities between them and the England cricket team are incredible. Like, England can't do the basics. They can't catch catches. They can't play. They can't leave. They can't play a straight ball. They keep getting out to the same ball every time in Australia. So they're going to lose the series probably 5-0 because they keep making the same mistakes. Hull City, to use the cricket analogy for those that can't stand cricket, but Hull City are making exactly the same mistakes every single game. They're not being undone by, okay, some of the, perhaps 1 or 2 of Boro's goals are really well worked, but basically every other goal they concede every other week is, you're like, well, that was avoidable, or they didn't mark the man, they didn't stop the cross. You're never going to stop every cross. Let's say that. But they're not, Nunes for Ipswich, ball back you know what Jaden Philogene is going to do. So we stand there and we let the lad pass it back to Philogene, who takes one touch and swings across it. Smallest player on the pitch, Nunez, done nothing all game, gets in behind Hughes and heads it in from 6 yards. That's not rocket science. Yes, from Ipswich point of view, say, wonderful ball in from Jaden, Nunez peels off his marker and gets a free header. But they're all avoidable goals. And it's like the goal of the first goal on Friday night, totally, it's just a ball in behind. And then second and third goal, Ajayi and Egan have both won the ball. They've won the ball off their man. Get it up the line. Get City attack on the flip it in transition. Get City going the other way. But they've tried to play a ball in facing their own goal, and they've lost it, and they've been punished. Goalkeeper has to do better for the one he's kicked into his net. Close range, I know, but has to do better. So the goals they're conceding, and I sometimes think in football, it's easy to criticise the manager and go, well, his tactics are rubbish, or he's with this or with that. Ultimately, players are out there, and it's always the chicken and the egg, isn't it? Who's to blame? Is it the manager or the players? The manager has to find a solution. He has to be the person as the figurehead and the lead coach to find the solution, to come up with it with his staff. But it also needs the players, when they're out there, to sense the danger. And for Shemi Ajayi, who's played 1,000 games in the Championship, to know, actually, that we're 1-0 down at home, that ball's not on. I'm going to play the percentage. I'm going to look for Louis Coyle up the line, or I'm going to look for Carl Joseph. I'm going to get us out of... They're pressing. They're pushing us back. I'm going to go long and get us out the stuck, and we can regroup. Egan, I'm going to go Rosette. Okay, I give up a long throw coming in our box, but it buys us a few seconds. We can regroup, and then we're looking at the danger coming towards us rather than playing it to a player that's got 2 players on his back. So I think the players have got to take responsibility. If you give them credit for turning it around at Stoke for the way they play, you've then got to say, hang on a minute, lads. Some of that football that you did in that first half against Boro was you brain dead. That was that you're better than that. You're Championship level footballers earning £25,000-30,000 a week. I would, as a punter, as a manager, I would expect better in-game management than we saw and we've been seeing at times.
To stick with the cricket analogy, there, you've come in off your full run up there, Baz, haven't you? You've let it go. I don't think they're as bad as the England cricket team are at the moment. I just there is an element of, well, the hope is that's a one-off performance, and as we've all been saying, it's been coming for a while because the nature of the way they play. And hopefully they can sort it out. The players will know it. The players will know that's not good enough. If the aspiration is the playoffs, and I still think they've every chance of making the playoffs with players coming back. But they do need to defend, and they do need better midfield cover. And when it goes up top, we've not really discussed this. It's got to stick. If the defensive if the option is get out quick and get the ball away quick, it's got to stick with Destin. It's got to stick with Joseph or whoever, rather than coming back and then the other team can get through. And we've got to give Middlesbrough credit. They played with great pace. Somebody said to me in the press room before the game, Burnsy, they're wide open, Middlesbrough. You look at the squad, it's really attacking. They're wide open if you can get them on the counter. But it paid off for them. They played aggressively. He wants to play apparently like Bielsa's Leeds, and it paid off for them. It's how they react on Wednesday night, and I don't think it's panic. It was John Smith, by the way, to the 1904 club, said Jakirovic has said multiple times that it's much easier to fix the defence than it would be to fix the attack. So if that's the case, why is our defence still as porous as a sieve?
And he makes a fair point, and I think that is the frustration. And every player you speak to, they all say the same thing. We want them to do well, and we've loved watching them this season. It's been a real privilege to watch them, and it's so enjoyable. And I think the fans are enjoying it as well. This is all coming from they've given themselves such a platform. They've given themselves such a platform this season, and because of how open the Championship is, the fact that the three relegated teams in Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton haven't really fired yet. I mean, perhaps they're about to. Southampton have been much better since their change of manager. Ipswich, are quite up and down, but they're there or thereabouts. Leicester were very good for 40 minutes at Derby, but then tried to throw that away, and their fans were chanting for Cifuentes to leave the week before when they were 3-0 down. So, I think it's such an open league, and I think they've got an opportunity to get into the play. I don't think the top two is realistic, and I think that was proven on Friday night when Boro were. Yes, I know they won at Stoke, who was second, but I think Boro are a better team than Stoke, and I think that will be proven over the next 10, 12 games. But I think they're in that pack of clubs that think, we're in with a chance, and they are in with a chance. My worry and my concern is when you look at the amount of goals they're conceding, it's really hard to then say they're going to go and get in the playoffs, because you think, but other teams will have so many chances, and you can't ride your luck. You can't have a Norwich and a Stoke every single week where you get away with it and the opposition are really bad in front of goal, and you get away with it and you go and win the game. Because Middlesbrough were the example of what happens when the team get those chances and actually take them, and that's something that opposition teams haven't done to City. They've got to use this as a bit of a turning point, as a bit of a watershed moment now, and say, look, right, we've because it's, I guess the other thing, Burns, it's easy when you're riding your luck and you keep getting away with it. You go, well, okay, so it can't be that bad because we're getting away with it. Now they've had the punch on the nose. Now it's got to be a bit of a wake up call and go, hang on a minute, lads. That was a bit of a shock. We've conceded. We're 4-0 down at half time. I think it was Fletch that said something. Was it Fletch that said the last time they conceded 4 goals in the first half was to Boro in 2016 or 2017? But anyway, credit to Fletch for that cracker of a stat, if that's what it was. It can't happen again. And there's got to be that balance between being a team that play on the front foot and are capable of scoring goals, to one that are just a little bit more resolute, a little bit more organised, a little bit more compact defensively. And it is a case of win the tackle, stop the cross. As I say, you're never going to stop all crosses, but try and stop more than you are. Mark your players, track runners. This isn't basic. This is basic stuff. This isn't rocket science. This isn't top level. Mourinho, when he was in his pomp at Chelsea, going away and winning Champions Leagues with Drogba nicking a goal on the counter attack. This is achievable. They can do this with what they've got. It just needs the players to take a bit more responsibility, and when they're on the field, be a bit more switched on. And it's not an individual thing, it's a collective, because it's back to front, it's front to back. It's Destan, it's Joseph losing the ball too cheaply. And it's all right, Joseph clocking up 12, 13K in a game, but if we want to employ Mo Farah, we could do that. There's got to be an output from Kyle. If it's not goals, it's got to be assists, it's got to be tackles, it's got to be pressure that leads to a goal. It can't just be, oh well, yeah, but he's got his certificate, he's got his 12K certificate. That's anybody. You can get anybody can go out there and run 12K for just running sake. There's got to be a purpose to it. They've got to have a purpose. There's got to be an end product. You need to be seeing more from Destan. You need to be seeing more from Kyle in terms of being physical, getting the ball, holding it up, and then getting City up the pitch. Because at the minute, even when Ajay or Egan clear it, it's coming straight back. So it is like a colander.
That's what I was trying. I was just laughing at the Mo Farah. Don't worry, he's otherwise engaged doing an advert for somebody at the moment. Yeah, is it? Oh, right. Okay. Are you trying to get sponsorship for the 1904 club? Allaby Jules says, how many goals have we conceded lately where the last but one player to touch the ball is ours? Have to defend the box better and need good midfielders in front of the back four. We moved Crooks back there at Stoke, so surprised he didn't start there against Boro. Well, as we discussed earlier on the 1904 club, Allaby Jules, we think he'll probably be back playing a little deeper on Wednesday night against Wrexham. Allaby Jules also says, get your sound balance a bit better. Can hardly hear you and Baz, so turn it up. And the Prutz is booming out, so I have to turn it down. Last week's show was the best in a long time, though, apart from that. I thought we had a standard every week, Baz. Obviously, we're dipping below that standard. the 1904 club coach needs to sort it out. But we've tried to boost our mics today. Whether it's worked or not, Jules, do let us know. Richard Eglin says he had a question for Prut, so we'll maybe save that for another time. Pandor isn't commanding his defence or his box, it seems, nor anticipating a shot coming stationary, watching the ball hit the net. I disagree with you slightly. I don't think he could do anything about the goals on Friday night. But I noticed you had a story when you were talking to the manager about the transfer window. He was talking about another goalkeeper. What's the situation there? Are they looking for another number one? Just explain that a little bit, Baz.
I think he'd like another goalkeeper to come in and challenge Pandor and Phillips. I think everybody would agree that Pandor's not had the greatest season, very up and down. He's obviously done really well to get in the Croatia set up and potentially in line for a World Cup call-up. But I think they feel that more competition is needed, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that. So that's one to watch. I think there's also an element of now Pandor's in the Croatian setup. Does that generate more interest in Europe of him? His profile's raised. He suddenly could be a goalkeeper going to the World Cup, and we know what teams are like. Any player that goes to a World Cup is deemed incredible, and they want to sign him. So I think it was kind of like we want competition, but we're also mindful that there was interest in Panda in the summer. Maybe that comes back again in January.
Right. I was just going to say on Pandor, because it's easy to pick on the keeper, but I like him as a keeper. I think he's not perfect. None of them are. But you think back to QPR. I think he was man of the match at QPR. Was he man of the match at Stoke as well? And my personal opinion, for what it's worth, I don't think he was. I know you said earlier you thought he might have stopped one of the goals on Friday night. I don't think he could do anything about it. I think he was exposed, and Middlesbrough finished really well. So I like him as a goalkeeper. I've got a lot of time for him. Yeah, there's things he can work on in his game, but that's the nature of the beast. So we'll see. Have they got somebody? They'll have somebody in mind then. January.
Yeah, they had one or two. They had one or two, a list in the summer, because going into the final weekend of the window, I think there was a genuine expectation that he might leave, and they would need to move fairly quickly to replace him. So they've got one or two, but obviously they're, as we've said before, they're hamstrung in terms of what they can and can't do in January. It will depend on getting players out, players in. I think there's one or two areas they could look to try and exploit. We know there was interest in Casey Palmer. Obviously, there's the Pandor thing. Maybe Brandon Williams potentially could be moved on. Obviously, we've had an interview go up about that this morning. That Brandon's not really where they thought he probably would be, and that he's obviously taken up not only a salary, but more importantly a squad place as well. So that might give them, if they can move him out, that enables them to bring somebody in. So there's one or two things that they are, as I say, January is going to be probably the quietest one it's been for a while, but there's still things they need to address. And obviously he wants number 10. There's one or two names kicking around about that. Goalkeeper and they need number 6. I mean, Zambrano is the obvious one because he's back playing. He's at Maribor, which is the club owned by Aja Nilajala, and you would think that would be a straightforward deal on loan from between the two clubs. Obviously, it's got to be all done above board to comply with FIFA and everything. No suggestion of anything else, but that it feels that would be a relatively straightforward deal to do to get Zambrano in from Maribor. Now, he came with a big reputation. He only played 7 or 8 games before he went off to serve his punishment. But he's a big, tall, strong defensive midfielder. What he's like, though, having been out for a year, remains to be seen. But that one would make a lot of sense, and financially you would think would be achievable given the links between the two football clubs. There's Mitaze coming back, but if we've learned anything from the first few weeks of the season, you can't put any pressure on him because he's had a setback himself. He was on the road back. He's had a setback. You know, we've seen it with Miller and Bellumi. Even when they've come back, they've then done the hamstring. So, you know, even if Matazo was back for, let's say, I don't know, the middle of January, is he going to come back at the level that he was last year? Then is he going to get injured? Is he going to be out for 6 weeks? So that is an area that defensive role is, for me, the most important job in January. Forget anything. Forget goalkeepers. Forget number 10s and anybody else. Getting somebody that is capable of doing that job properly is their job. As I say, it's not the easiest thing because these are high quality players and they're not easy to get hold of. And obviously, City have got Lundstrom coming back and they'll have Matazo. So where does that player fit in terms of, you know, is he coming in to being a starter? That's stuff they've got to work out. But yeah, for me, January has got to be focused on signing somebody that can give a bit of protection and try and find a way of stopping this glut of goals, because it is going to be their Achilles heel, and it is still their Achilles heel.
We've not got a lot of time left on the pad. I think we've done on the pod rather. I think we've done all right because we were going to do a short one, Baz. But you can talk for Britain, so we're all right. Jamie Williams says, "Yeah, no, talk for Britain." I love you on your long run up, Baz. Jamie Williams says, "I love the manager Burnsy, but after the last pod, I kept thinking, why do we keep praising him for changing things in game when it means most of the time he's got it wrong from the start? How can we see zero improvement in the middle of the park, getting overrun constantly?" It's an interest. Somebody else sent the same thing. It said, you know, too many times we're starting games poorly. Does that mean they've got it wrong in what they're expecting from the opposition? It's an interesting point. I don't know whether I don't think I can answer that really. Batsy, you got a thought on that?
I think it's a good question. You know, there's a reason why are they starting so badly? Is it the information they've got on the opposition is not up to it? Are they not prepared for what they're going to be facing? Or, which I would highly doubt that, knowing the staff they've got, you know, the staff that do the work. It's not like they're going in undercooked and not knowing what they're going to be facing. Potentially, there's an element of that for Boro because it was a new manager and they've only had, you know, a small sample size. But generally, you know what you're going to get from teams in the Championship. There's no surprises. I just think it's down to personnel. I think the personnel aren't, you know, again, they started off brilliantly against Leicester. They were 2-0 up very quickly. It seems to be more recently they're quite sluggish from the kickoff, and they've got I think that's personnel. I think the players have got to get a grip of the game a lot earlier and not give the opposition a leg up. And that comes down to the players that are put out there, go out there from the first minute. And, you know, Boro it looked like Hull City with a team stuck in traffic on Friday night, not Boro. So, you know, they have got to find a way to start games quicker. But I'm not sure that's a coaching thing. I just think that's come on, lads, you know, that's a player thing. Sometimes the players have got to take a bit of responsibility and you know, responsible for how they start games.
It was Chris King sent us a message saying we've been so bad in so many first halves. Is there an issue with the scouting for games and analysis on preparation? Well, we've answered that, and if you think back, it's not always the case that it's a first half. At Watford, they were fantastic away at Watford in the first half, and then fell off the cliff in the second half. They were the better side against Ipswich in the first half. I think they were, from memory, my memory's shot, but I think they were better against Leicester in the first half. They were better against Southampton in the first half. So it's not consistent. And I agree with you. It's you know, the players not necessarily doing what they're meant to be doing. Thank you for all your questions to the 1904 Club. I'm conscious of the time. Wrexham, unbeaten in 9, 1 loss in 14, drawn the last 4 away. It's going to be tricky, isn't it? Wednesday night.
Yeah, absolutely it is, and they'll fancy their chances because they'll have seen what Boro did, and while they're not at that level, they'll fancy it. I mean, I'm going to avoid making a prediction because I did talk sport on Radio Humberside on before the game and said I really fancy City tonight. I've just got this feeling that, you know, Boro have had a couple of dodgy results. Yes, new manager came back to win against Derby, but I just fancy City, so I'm going to go for a City win, and then obviously bang, you get absolutely trounced. So I think it's a difficult game. They've played them already. Should have beaten them down in or across in North Wales. Capitulated in the final couple of minutes, and little did we know that was going to be the theme of conceding goals going forward after that clean sheet at Coventry. I think I'm loath to say it's a must-win at this stage of the season, but I think on the back of what happened against Boro, and given you go into Millwall and you've had 4 defeats in 6, just quickly, stats are funny, aren't they? Because before the game, the talk was they've won 6 in 10, and only Coventry have got a better record than 6 in 10. You lose to Boro, now it's 4. You've lost 4 in 6. So funny how it flips. But I think it's a really important game for Wednesday for themselves more than anything to get back and get a performance and get a home result. Obviously, you've lost your last 2 at home as well. You don't want to be losing 3 on the spin and going into the pre-Christmas game against West Bromwich Albion. So I think it's a really, really important one. Obviously difficult. Parkinson back at the MKM Stadium will be desperate to get one over on City and continue their decent run. They're right in the thick of it now as well. So, but look, I think it's a game that they need to be winning.
Yeah, I must admit, at the start of the season, I thought Wrexham, like Birmingham, would probably go up this season because they have the resources to throw a bit at it, and they're finding the feet. And it's a really tough game. They're all tough games, but we want to see a positive bounce back, don't we? Hopefully we'll get it, see what happens. And can I just say, we've had loads of messages, Baz, so if I've not read out your name or your message, I can only apologise. But we've been swamped today. It's always the nature after a heavy defeat. People want to get it off their chest. So thank you for all that to the 1904 club.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's it. We've got to go because I've got to shoot to a press conference, and then we've got the club hospital visit this afternoon. Hence why you can see the snowman on my jumper. If you're listening, I've got a snowman jumper on. We're doing the Hull Royal Infirmary hospital visit later on today, so we're looking forward to that very much. I echo Burns' thoughts. Thanks very much for all your comments, your questions. As always, we do read them all. If we haven't got to them, we've had so many. We apologise, and hopefully the last hour and 2 minutes haven't been too bad without Prutz, Catherine, who we send our best wishes to, and Fletch. Hopefully the next one we'll all be back together. But for now, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. And here's hopefully to 3 points on Wednesday night against Wrexham. Burnsy, thank you very much. Up the Tigers.